Alex Jones just recently called Ventura a good man. He's like a prophet, he said. And he even asked him about maybe running for president. So that tells me, and I think this is absolutely true, he would vote for Ventura as president, even though Ventura is pro-gay marriage, pro-gay rights, pro-abortion. And so if you can see what's happening here is that the moral issues and the gospel and the real teachings of real Christianity are out the window, because it's all about, okay, if you're against the Federal Reserve System, if you believe in conspiracies, then you're a hero, as he called Charlie Sheen, for example. Now, Charlie Sheen, in a video he did not too long ago, said that he voted for Obama as president. So, therefore, if he voted for Obama, then he doesn't have a big problem with Obama's promotion of gay rights, partial birth abortion, etc. And Alex Jones called Charlie Sheen an American hero. Charlie Sheen also, on his TV program, which I saw a transcript of this on WorldNet Daily, had this blasphemous song that he, Joy to the World, where instead of it's about the birth of our Lord, the words are changed where it's talking about how he's going to be fornicating on Christmas Eve. And so it was just a horrible thing, and they were trying to get petitions because it was such a blasphemous thing that was going to be on TV. But he's an American hero because he doesn't believe the official story on 9/11. And he's also called, Rosie O'Donnell began to question the veracity of the official story of 9/11 at a certain point several years ago, and he was basically praising Rosie O'Donnell, who's a lesbian.
Yeah, and in fact, he went out of his way to say that people shouldn't be quick to denounce her, and he basically refused to denounce homosexuality when the issue of Rosie O'Donnell came up and her being a lesbian. And he said something to the effect of, well, everyone has weaknesses, and something like no one is perfect. So he was implying that basically she might be able to be excused and could potentially be a good person, even though she's a lesbian, and as long as she stands for 9/11 truth. Another contradiction is the fact that he, with regard to Rand Paul, who's Ron Paul's son, he praises him as authentic, even though he said on CNN that Sarah Palin would make a great president. And Alex Jones holds that Sarah Palin is essentially a Trojan horse inside the liberty movement, who will be basically the death to constitutionalism and will represent a win for the globalists. And so he thinks Rand Paul is authentic, he endorses her, but Sarah Palin is basically death to the liberty movement. It's just a contradiction.
And then he's had several times David Icke on, who's essentially a New Ager. He's had Dave Mustaine on, who's the head man for Megadeth, this heavy metal band. Alex Jones has said he's always loved Megadeth, and he's learned from them growing up. And I decided to listen to about 20 seconds worth of their, quote, music. It's just purely satanic. It's just people holding their hands, giving the horn hand, satanic hand sign all around them, and it just reminds you or makes you think of maybe what hell would be for people, a small glimpse of a level of hell.
And one of the big problems with the false resistance and essentially the false gospel that he promotes, that it's all about saving people's freedoms, preserving their lives on earth, is the fact that we're all going to die, okay? Everyone's going to die anyway, and so what people need to know is how to save their souls, and that only happens through authentic Christianity, the Catholic faith. But what's interesting is that he sees this taking away of freedoms happening all around us, but the truth is that God is allowing people's freedoms to be taken away as a result of sin and heresy, and in fact the same kinds of sins and heresies that he promotes and accepts: immodesty, paganism, this liberalism, this embracing of the evil culture. This is the type of thing that God sees, and the reason that God allows people's freedoms to be taken away, and He's allowing them, since they're enslaved to the devil by sin, to basically be enslaved in the physical world as well.
And one of the reasons that his program has gotten so big is that a lot of people, all they care about is their latest New World Order update, their latest, fix for conspiracy information. And that's why they tune in. The religious issues, who cares? But secular issues, what's happening in our country, that's all a lot of these people care about. They don't care about anything else almost. They're just pagans. And so they're worried about having their, quote, freedoms and rights taken away. And in a certain way, we can see with what happened even after 9/11, that during a disaster time, some of these people start to think more about eternity, their souls, religious issues, instead of just engaging in the paganism that unfortunately most of these people engage in day after day after day. So, and that's why a lot of people just love to tune in and get their latest updates, because all they care about is this world, this earth, this planet, and what's going to happen with it. And so some of the other things that he's promoted, he said that he believes in the Founding Fathers and freedom of religion, which obviously we could get into that, but
it's fundamentally illogical, freedom of religion, because if your religious views cause you to conclude that others' freedom should be infringed upon, then you are limiting that person's freedom of religion by guaranteeing freedom of religion for others. It's fundamentally illogical, and so there always has to be a judge about what is legitimate freedom of religion and what is illegitimate freedom of religion. That's why it's a false doctrine. But obviously it goes without saying, since he's gung-ho about the Constitution and thinks it's basically the greatest document ever, or one of them, that he would, obviously think that freedom of religion is great. He embraces evolution. A lot of people don't know that. He said on one of his radio programs that he does not reject evolution. And so even from the perspective of someone who claims to be a so-called Bible-believing Christian, you'd have to say that he doesn't believe even in what those people would have to say about the Bible. And so that might surprise a lot of people, but he did not reject evolution when it came up on one of his programs. And in fact, some woman was calling about Jesse Ventura and his promotion and acceptance of evolution, and Alex said, well, it's basically a misconception that the Bible is incompatible with evolution. That's what he said in so many words.
Oh, and speaking of that, when Ventura was on one time that I listened, I heard him, he took our Lord's name in vain.
Alex did.
Alex did, yeah. And I don't know, maybe he realized it, or he doesn't think it's a big deal, or wasn't aware of it. But that shows it was right on air, and obviously, if he did know, he didn't decide to edit that out. And at least I heard that at least one time. And speaking of that, Alex was also the executive producer for Loose Change Final Cut. And in that film, there is an almost unbelievable blasphemy against our Lord that a guy utters, I guess, after the first or second plane hit the trade towers. And why they had this in there, they just had the audio of this guy blaspheming. Why someone would put that in the film is it ruined the entire film. In fact, even from their perspective, they obviously have people who claim to be Protestants and fundamentalists and other things.
It's just stupid.
That it's going to cut down the distribution of the film because you have a bad word in there and a blasphemy against our Lord, and it's going to stop people from distributing this film that otherwise was a devastating blow to the New World Order, and otherwise was done incredibly well. And this shows you the mindset and the outlook and the people who are the driving forces behind this film for them to allow this to be in. So when I heard this, and I was just amazed. I called the Loose Change people at that time, and I spoke to a guy there over the phone, and And I said, why would you put this in your film? I said, it's going to even cut down your distribution. We could never distribute this film. Someone else could not distribute it because of this blasphemy. Why would you ever put that in there? And he goes, we respect everyone's beliefs and everyone's religion. And I said, well, that's a fundamental contradiction. If that's the case, then you shouldn't even be putting out this film, because the people that you're trying to prove were behind 9/11 are following their own kind of religious, philosophical outlook on life, that they should dominate everyone else and put everyone else that's under them into the New World Order that they would control. And so if you respect everyone's beliefs, then you're going to have to respect the beliefs of these people who carried out 9/11. And so he didn't have much to say when I said that.